We're live. All right. Thank you all for joining us for the regular city commission meeting of Tuesday, July 5th, 2022. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask all of you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Actually, I skipped over a roll call. Sorry about that. Mayor Pro Tem Elder,
Present.
Commissioner Jenks,
Here.
Commissioner Rozelle,
Present.
Commissioner Olsman,
Present.
Mayor Paul present. Approval of the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Communications, I don't think we have anything that we need to comment on.
We do.
We do? Okay, what would be your comment, Commissioner?
I think the letter is strongly worded and includes all the issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Elected officials, remarks. I don't see any elected officials in the room, so we'll move on to public participation. This is an opportunity for the public to address the commission for an item that is not on the agenda.
Well, I have something that is on the agenda.
You'll have an opportunity when that item comes up.
Okay. Thank you. You may remember at the May meeting, I asked the commission if they would be transparent in their use of city vehicles, having changed the rules in 2019. Tonight, I'm simply asking you to be accurate in the notes, in the minutes of that meeting, so that they accurately reflect what I actually said. In other words, the statement would be simply, Harold Stack asked the city commission to be transparent about its use of city vehicles. I assume you have not agreed to do that, or I would have heard by now, so I will assume you're not going to do that. Is that accurate?
So you're asking for the minutes to reflect more in depth your comments?
I'm only asking the minutes to say Harold Stack asked the city commission if it would be transparent in its use of city vehicles. Simply that. Okay. And have you agreed to do that or not?
Any other comments?
You could just shake your head. You know, this would be.
You know, Mr. Stack,
Yes.
I'm going to tell you something. We've got a order of priorities here, Robert's Rules of Order.
Yep.
So you made your comment. It's not your right to engage one-on-one with any city commissioner unless it's called for. And this is not, you've asked the question, we've answered it.
I'm sorry, how did you answer it?
This is not a question and answer part of the
I
agenda.
understand.
This is
So
a public
how
comment, so
How do I get the answer? Can you answer that?
you can always call up the city manager and
Okay.
he will
Good.
respond.
I just want to, I don't really, at some level, don't have high expectations here. I just want to be able to document the answer. Thank you.
Any other public participation? Seeing none, I'll close public participation and move on to the regular items of business. Our first item is a matter of consideration of approving the city manager to execute the quote from IT Right in the amount not to exceed $14,383.28 for server upgrades and installation.
So moved.
Support.
Is there any questions or comments from the public? Please come forward.
Since one of my, Jay Schwartz, live at 10014 Ludlow since 1965. Just a general question, as part of this contract, does this include maintenance upgrade for anything cybersecurity protection? Is that explicitly called out? Who is responsible and to what extent they are? And by way of background, when I say this, I have, in my professional capacity, been involved in cybersecurity for many, many years, and can say that municipalities are a big target for people who don't like it. So is that also part of the contract, cybersecurity explicitly called out? Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your comments. This contract is strictly for the purchase of a server, and the installation has nothing to do.
Bob, Mr. Mayor, the city manager was going to comment.
I can, thank you for the question. That is part of our overall contract with IT Right, which we just entered into, I think, 2 months ago. So it is a consideration in recommending these changes, as part of their analysis of our server, which dates back to, this one, I think, 2012. They did recommend these upgrades to be made, which will allow them to, manage some of the things that we do through BSNA, but there's also a security aspect of that as well. So that was, it's not part of this quote, but it's part of their contract that we have with them for our IT services. And it was a factor in putting these recommendations together for our server.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions from the commission? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2 is a matter of consideration to receive and file the MERS annual actuarial valuation as of 12/31/2021, I believe.
Correct.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any comments or questions from the public? All right, how about from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I just, more of a comment, and that is, some of us campaigned on the promise that we would do our best to shore up the underfunded pension situation here, and this is the best level of funding that this pension plan has ever been in, certainly in my tenure on this commission. I mean, 71% is excellent. I'm under no delusion with this year's market that our rate of return will not be as good as next year, but I think the voters helping us by approving that public safety millage and the commission related to pensions, and the commission also making additional pension contributions has really moved us up significantly in terms of our funding status. So something that I think we should all be very proud of. Thank you.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 is a matter of considering the approval with Wide Open West Michigan of the Active Uniform Video Service Local Franchise Agreement renewal. We have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Any comments or questions from the public? All right, all comments or questions from the commission?
Yes, I think that in the motion that we make, that the the current WOW video service footprint has to be provided to us within 30 days. And that be added to the motion. That will be made. And I also don't understand why the contract did not have the numbers filled in, the 5% franchise fee and the 1% pay. The proposal is absent, even though we will be making a motion.
I agree, there were blanks for those spots, those will be filled in before it's executed and sent back to,
Okay,
well, under the terms of the memo and the resolution from council.
okay.
As far as the first part of Commissioner Jenks' comments, I don't know that we can change this contract.
The contract, the legal advice said that we had the right to request an updated WOW video service footprint, and I would like to see that occur. This is a 10-year-old contract.
So you're just asking for us to request that?
Yes,
Okay, not a change in the contract.
no, it's something that they do, but rather than do it loosey-goosey, ask for a current, we're looking at 10 years' progress.
I'll ask for an updated service map from WOW.
It says, it's the memo says if they didn't already provide a map, was a map
I
included with
don't,
their
I don't
application?
recall getting one. I'll check if we don't have one. If I have one, I'll make sure the commission gets it. If we don't, I'll get it updated.
I would prefer that we request an updated one as of the time of the contract.
Okay, I will do that.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
But, Bob, we haven't mentioned the amounts. Can I make that motion, please?
To be filled in the contract?
Didn't you say the 5% and the 1%?
Okay.
Yeah.
As long as that shows
It's-
in
yeah.
the motion.
I think it was part of the motion.
Okay. It just wasn't stated.
Okay, item number 4 is a matter of considering the adoption of an ordinance. We had the first reading at the last meeting. Amending Chapter 40, zoning Article 9, substantial design and environment standards, as this is mainly relating to the solar panels. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any public comment?
Hello again. Jay Schwartz. And I have three comments to make about this proposed ordinance. Two of them are relatively minor and one very significant. The minor one is that upon review of the ordinance, it specifically mentions complying with regulations of the Federal Aviation Administration. To the best of my knowledge, nor in conversations with the city manager or Hank Berry, can we come up with any rule or regulation of the FAA pertinent to solar cells. We believe that it is just boilerplate copy-paste from somewhere. Therefore, unless absent someone can specifically cite in the Federal Aviation Administration regulations where there is something specific to residential solar cells, that this requirement be stricken from the ordinance as totally irrelevant. And even if it does survive, there is a legal question, a formal legal question, of would the city have jurisdiction to enforce a violation of a federal regulation? That is extremely doubtful. Okay, that's item number one. Item number two, there are other documents, regulations that are cited in the proposed ordinance. Has anyone gone through and actually verified that these proposed other documents specifically mention solar cells, either in a commercial or in a residential? Not just guesswork, not just boilerplate if somebody else did it, but can specifically cite that says in this document, this regulation specifically calls out this situation. I'm not referring to just general health and safety and fire regulations that say you need to use a certain gauge wire or, a certain current capacity, or it has to be separate or something highly technical, but specifically covers this situation. If yes, no problem putting it in. If no, then again, this is, you're putting something in an ordinance that is totally irrelevant and it's only going to confuse people. My third objection, and this is my very serious objection, I was given to understand that solar cells will not be allowed on the street side, the front facing the house. And this is a problem. And it's an engineering problem. And by way of background, for those of you who are not familiar with me, I am a degreed electrical engineer from Lawrence Tech, BS in electrical engineering, and spent my entire career in engineering. So and even before that, I had electricity, electronics background, even before getting my degree. Now, the problem here, from an engineering point of view, and it gets please follow along with me. If you say that we're just going to allow them in the back, the problem is all solar cells, without exception, degrade over time. How long it takes to degrade, to what degree they degrade, that depends upon the manufacturer, how well they were installed, how well they were maintained. But they do degrade. So when you put something in just in the rear of the house, let's assume for the purpose of conversation here, it meets 100% of the requirements of the house. For conversation, to keep the numbers simple. Over time, how much time? We don't know. And there's no way to predict it in advance. That will degrade. How much it will degrade? We don't know. For purposes of conversation, let's say over 10 years, it degrades 25%. So 10 years down the road, you only have 75% of what you thought. If you allow overbuild without having to jump through hoops to allow on the front of the house, now the homeowner may elect to put in 125, 150% of capacity, such that over time, when the degradation happens, it doesn't degrade below the 100% point, it degrades to say 125%. Also, it's been mentioned the aesthetic value here. From someone who, through amateur radio, when people say antennas, your antenna, it's, oh my God, my property values are going to go to hell and it's going to look bad. Trust me, after a few days, they don't even notice it. So that's really a non-starter right there. Those are some of the major things. Oh yes, the one final thing is, if they have to go to another board to get approval of this, you are going to be asking that even though the members of the zoning board, the historic district, are good people, I'm not degrading them, I'm not denigrating them, I'm not putting them down, but do they have the knowledge, experience, or expertise to understand this degradation issue and any other issues that go along with it? Or are they just looking at the aesthetics? So you're going to force the homeowner to go make a presentation, to go through the extra time, the extra effort, the extra expense, possibly, of going through an engineering presentation to do something that is avoidable. And when it comes to the aesthetics part, has anyone really asked the question, is it objectionable? Are we just guessing that it's going to be that way? Or has anyone actually come before this commission or the zoning board and really presented a cognizant, cogent case for not allowing in the front? On the basis of everything I just said, I believe that a homeowner should be allowed, without further ado, without having to do through extra permitting or extra expense, to put in whatever solar cells are needed on any area of the roof. I agree with not putting it on the sides. It's not going to do anything on the sides. It's on the roof, and it's also a matter, and since it occurs to me also, you have the matter of trees. Trees will shade these solar cells. It will degrade their performance. Not degrade them, it will degrade their efficiency and how much they can do. For the aforementioned reasons, I come before the commission and ask you to reconsider this part of the ordinance to allow full roof coverage, and also to update the proposal as with regard to the federal aviation regulations, and also with regard to the other documents and regulations you have put in there. As always, I'm available to answer any technical or engineering questions you might have. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Thanks for your comments.
I was going to address Mr. Schwartz. First of all, I appreciate your coming. I always appreciate the respectful manner in which you raise questions. They're good questions. The answer to the FAA question is, and I will confess to immediate gratification through Google is because in certain areas, the solar panels can create glare. These tend to be near the airports. So the FAA does have jurisdiction. I don't know that, pardon me, it would apply here, although the closest airport would be Troy. But the issue with regard to the rooftop solar panels is one of creating glare. That's what the FAA is concerned about. With respect to your comment about being boilerplate, I don't know that I would say it quite like that. But our legal counsel, represents multiple cities and obviously is going to use her expertise from other cities' ordinances dealing with solar panels to, help her in the drafting of ours. But the answer to your question is the FAA does
Okay.
regulate in the areas, like I said, when it's close to an airport. Around here, I personally, I'm not a pilot, but I don't see how a flight approaching the Troy airport or the medical helicopter from Beaumont would be affected by that.
Okay, allow me to respond to that if I may,
But
please.
that's all I'm saying. It's not a throwaway. It may be her judgment, which I would have to defer to, that you're better off including it than not.
Right.
But it's not extraneous and it's not irrelevant.
Okay, thank you. That's new information for me.
Right.
Now, speaking also, in my background, I was active in Air Force Auxiliary Civil Air Patrol Search and Rescue. I was an air crew member, and we, as such, we had to be familiar with various FARs. And just combining knowledge of the FARs, because there is an altitude limit, FAR, Federal Aviation Regulation.
Right.
There is an altitude limit about, you can't go below a certain altitude over a populated area, and I believe it's 1,000 feet. So you have to ask yourself the question, even if there was a glare 1,000 feet up of somebody moving it, is it going to make a difference? And the answer is probably not.
Well, I understand, but-
And you're right about Troy. It's completely out of the pattern of
But it's
Troy.
an FAA regulation, and like I said, at this juncture, I'm going to defer to Ms. Rosati
Right.
on her. Now, let me just tell you about some of the other things you talked about.
Okay,
So last year, I was the commission liaison to the planning commission when the topic of these solar panels being mounted elsewhere on the house first came up. All of the questions you raised, I assure you, they were gnashed out and discussed ad nauseum. And as somebody who in the beginning was not necessarily a big fan or a proponent of it, you come to realize that if you allow the solar panels at all, you have to allow them for everyone. It's a legal issue. And again, Ms. Rosati and I discussed, she was very helpful with all of this, as she always is. So I'm just telling you that everything you're raising is valid, and I'm just telling you that the Planning Commission spent an exorbitant amount of time on it, and I believe the City Commission did have a presentation by a solar panel engineering company that came in here to discuss it. Personally, I think that technology over time will probably eliminate all of this. Eventually, I think the shingles will be the solar panels in years to come. That the technology for it, in other words, there are many people who believe this is very important, and the city spent a lot of time in it, a lot of effort. And I think we've given it more than its fair due, if you will. But all I want to convey to you is all the topics you raised are valid, and except for the FAA business, which I candidly didn't know about until I just checked it. But that they were all thoroughly discussed. The Planning Commission spent a tremendous amount of time on it. I'm just telling you, this isn't something that just landed here without much thought or consideration. So that's all I'm assuring you. And frankly, we haven't had that many requests to even do these in the woods.
oh, yeah,
So,
and
but there are people, there are folks here who feel very strongly about it. So I'm just telling you, we gave it a tremendous amount of consideration, discussion, and time. We did, and so did the Planning Commission. So just in fairness to you as a concerned citizen, I mean, there was a lot of time spent on the topic, so, but I do appreciate your comments, and more importantly, I appreciate the respectful manner in which you present them.
Oh, thank you. So when you say you've discussed them, okay, so what was the, well, let me ask, just as a procedure tonight, is the ordinance going to be voted on tonight, or is this just another
This is the
reading?
final, I believe this is the final
second
reading.
So there will be no further changes after tonight's meeting, is that
There
correct?
can always, Mr. Schwartz, you know, there can always be changes to an ordinance. We do that all the time. We find
Okay.
out that something had to be improved or changed or altered, that there's a change in state law or whatever. We do that all the time. It's not the Ten Commandments here. It's a city ordinance involving solar panels.
Right, and,
So it can
Right.
always be changed,
right.
always be improved, always be modified. But like I
And-
said, I don't see this as being a hot topic, no pun intended, of demand. And,
That gets
so-
into
but I'm just,
thermodynamic efficiency.
I understand, but I don't want to get it, I don't want to do what I just said, we can't just have this back and forth. But I did want to address your point about the FAA and assure you and anybody who would be watching about the amount of time that was spent on this ordinance. I was not, in the beginning, I was not a big fan, but I came to realize that eventually, if you're going to allow them, you have to give every homeowner an opportunity if this is something they wanted, to do it within the realm of what the ordinance provides.
Okay, after that, can we, I'd like to get with you offline.
Anytime.
Okay.
Glad to have a cup of coffee or whatever, something stronger, and talk about it. That's fine.
Single malt.
I see. All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
again. Any other comments from the
Yes.
commission?
Jay, this moves the ordinance from, you have to go through a review the minute you put the panels on, to now you end up going through a review only if you add to the front. The environmental committee recommended the entire option. Planning, this has been going through the last 2 years, bouncing back and forth. This is progress. Let's see how it works. Let's see if it does create a lot of problems for people. I know at least one family that moved from the city because they really couldn't get the solar panel ordinance the way they wanted. But I mean, I support this as progress and really appreciate the way the city manager has taken the lead on this.
Oh, I agree, it's progress. I just was concerned that some of the things as I spoke about.
Any other comments from the commission? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor Paul, and I'll try to be brief. Just updates from the last time we met. We did go forward, I think, successfully with the Juneteenth event, the week of June the 18th. It was well-attended. Thanks to everybody who was there. Thanks to everybody who participated, particularly the members of the Anti-Racism Committee and their efforts on that. It was very much above and beyond what they did, but I think we've laid a foundation for a good event for that, and something we can carry forward in future years. So I'll say I was well-attended. It was a good, positive event, and I was happy to be a part of that. Obviously, we just had our annual events over the weekend with the fireworks. We're back in town on Friday night. Got a little nervous with the weather later in the afternoon, but everything, I was out with a big blanket and blew everything to the south of us, and the weather cleared up, and I thought it was a good show. So we are in contact with Pyrotechnico to see about scheduling again for next year. That's the way we want to go, and if we do, about putting that back on the 4th if we can, which I think people were more accustomed to here. We have moved forward with a recommendation. I know I talked to the commission about it last week, but I thought it would be appropriate to mention now. I have made an appointment to the finance director position. Ethan Hahn, who is here with us tonight, has accepted that role, and look forward to working with Ethan and now filling his position. But we are happy to have Ethan on board, and congratulations, and I think he will do a good job for quite a while. It came to my attention last week, there had been some discussion at the Parks and Rec Board regarding photo policies. for events within the city and at the recreation center, particularly involving children and minors. So it was good points. We were looking into that. I've been looking into that with Carol, and we'll come back with a recommendation to the commission and to the Parks and Rec Board. We are certainly fortunate to have Jeff and all the great work that he does here. It's well into the, I think, thousands of dollars worth of free publicity that we get. And he's done a tremendous job, and I don't think anybody's questioning what he does. But it was a fair issue to consider, and so we are looking into the legalities of that, and I'll come back with a recommendation for this body. We did have a pre-construction meeting with the contractors for the water main and road work we have going on this summer. Both those projects are scheduled to start on July 18th, so we will have the notification progress going on very soon to affected residents and coordinating things with them as far as ingress and egress to their properties. So I think it was a good meeting. I think things will go as well as construction projects go. I think it'll be good. I think the work's needed, and I'll be happy. I'm happy to get started, and even happier to be finished with that. Lastly, this Friday at Scotia Park, I've been working with the group from the Women's League, and DPW is getting involved. We are going to tackle and also talk a little bit to John DeLeese from NSC, who's been doing some of our invasive species treatment at Scotia Park. But that was a great plan, I think, that they put in place for the rain gardens, but over about 4 years now, it's become a bit overgrown. So we were able to go back and pull out those original planning plans, and we're going to tackle some efforts Friday, beginning around 1 o'clock, with old-fashioned, low-technology, high-reliability landscaping equipment, and cut some of that back and try to restore the original design of that. I think it will be an improvement, and I think it's just become a bit too overgrown over years. It's hard to discern what's there and what's not there. So I think if we can cut the original paths back in, thin some of that out. There are some weeds. There's still some really good stuff in there too. There's just too much of it. So we'd like to clear that out, mulch the original paths back, and we're going to start with the first area right at the sign, right at the corner there at Scotia. And we'll do as much as time, weather, and our bodies allow that day, and we'll move forward from there. So, but it's part of the Women's League. Normally they do the home tours, like they're doing a backyard tour, and they want to spruce that area up and to bring people in to show them this is what the rain garden looks like. It's something you can recreate in your own yard, but we want to clean it up first. So, thanks to them for their efforts on that. If you're available Friday and you want to stop by and see me probably killing myself, stop by, and it'll be a fun time. So thanks to them. DPW is going to chip in on that. Any young people in the area who are in need of volunteer hours, show up, and I will sign your form for you. You will get a fair deal from me for that promise. So it's like selling a car, but that was it. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commission for the city manager?
Mr. Mayor, I have one. This gentleman has been up now several times about the use of city vehicles by commissioners. I'm wondering, are those I've never used one, but commissioners who do request use of this vehicle, is that in writing anywhere? I mean, is there like any document? I mean, if there is, maybe you could just have him file a FOIA request and he could obtain that information. I mean, this isn't about transparency. By state law, we're fully transparent. Everything we do is a public record. So if we have this stuff in writing, these requests that folks have made for use of the vehicle, then just ask them to file a FOIA request and turn it over. I mean, it doesn't require any affirmative vote on our part. If it's not in writing, perhaps we should move toward that end and going forward, make it such a request or a form to be completed. But I just want to be clear that we're very transparent in all the records that we have here, and all the public has to do is just ask, and we'll provide them.
I just want to add to what Joe just said. My comment to you is that the purpose of what we did in 2019 was to create a written policy. I've never operated a city vehicle except once when we had volunteers to clean up the 696 right away. I was told to drive them down to Scotia and 10 Mile in the city truck, and I brought it back. I can't say it was an overwhelming a good experience with regard to operating a vehicle, but nevertheless, but it seems to me that the answer is we must have a log for this, that if somebody takes a car, that it's signed out to the person, and it says on this date where they went, how many miles were put on, and that's it. I mean, this is not rocket science to do it.
It's a bit more informal than that, because it's a fairly rare occurrence.
Right, almost never happens.
But I could create a log for it. It's just, I think the policy when I reviewed the policy, it was just to make sure that, we weren't using the vehicle to take away from otherwise
Right.
city operations, and I think that's been accomplished.
Well, the purpose of the policy was to say that if the vehicle was in use or scheduled to be used by any employee of the city other than anyone involved in the city commission, that it was not available for any city
Correct.
commissioner to use. That the idea was to make sure that it was, to be used, it had to be basically sitting there with nobody else using it. But it seems to me the answer is just to have a very simple log that if somebody borrows it or uses it for city purpose, then they just sign, you just put that information in, date, time, number of miles, and who it was. Then I agree with Joe. That would be subject to FOIA. It would be no issue at all. But there's no lack of transparency.
I could recreate, for my time here, I could recreate that easily, because it's
Easily.
not been done. I don't know how far back I could go, but the rest have generally been in writing via email, and
Right.
I think I know them off the top of my head, so I could put that together, we could maintain that, it's
Okay.
not a problem.
That'd be great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions?
I just don't understand why he doesn't call you and ask instead of coming here every time, but that's all, thank you.
Good question.
Do we have a motion to adjourn the regular city commission meeting?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.